Hello again, everyone. Edwin Learnard back once again. In this YouTube astrological segment, I'm going to be sharing my thoughts on the astrological community. Now, first thing is, well, according to a 2009 Harris poll, which was on astrology.co.uk, 26% of Americans believe in the existence of astrology. And I would say, given this number, it wouldn't surprise me if the amount of people that currently believe in astrology would actually be greater, because this poll was taken in 2009, which of course was 8 years ago at the time that I'm making this video, into of course 2017 right now. So, I mean, given at this point in time, there are about 326 million people in the US. Now, let's say that the percentage increased of people that believe in astrology at this point in time. Let's say that if it was 30%. Now, if that was 30%, the estimated amount of people in the US that would see astrology as plausible and believable would be at about 98 million. So, and according to MotherJones.com, 92% of people in China do not believe in astrology. However, that means 8% believe in it, and that would mean that about, according to the current population, you would have over 100 million people in China that actually do believe it, given that they do have an exorbitant population, and that would be a vast understatement. I think it's one of the most populated. It may be the number one as far as population in the world, but I'm not sure of that. But I'm sure it's pretty close to it. Now, there are also, I mean, you could also have many forums that exist where people can talk and discuss about a wide divergence of astrology subjects and topics. You can go websites. You have like that astrologyweekly.com, I believe it is. There's a Linda Goodman website. And also Facebook groups are very good to talk about different aspects and elements of astrology. And I think it's really, I mean, you look at this, and I mean, YouTube astrology, I believe, has grown over the years. It's become increasingly popular. I mean, Alyssa Sharp is the one, as I stated in previous videos. She inspired me to start doing YouTube astrology videos. She has a very whimsical and animated personality. She adds a lot of humor into her videos, and also she shares her profuse knowledge as well. And then you have the Leo King, who started his either 2011, 2012, and he's of course very, I mean, Alice being a Leo, he's very charismatic, very dynamic. He's just, I mean, and he really also, what I like about him is that he incorporates spirituality into his videos, and he really shows things in a very positive life, and his videos do give people lots of hope. So, you know, it's really this is really something. I mean, with astrology, I mean, it has definitely grown. I think there is a strong, I mean, I don't think anybody can undervalue the proliferation of astrology and astrological resources at this point in time. I mean, it's just a very growing subject. This is also that when we look at, there was a website that had talked about, that had intimated, or maybe even stated that something about that less science educated people believe in astrology more than science-educated people. Well, the only response, I mean, I could really give to that is that maybe this is just about more people that are educated in astrology. There's a lot of people that are educated in astrology as opposed to other subjects. I mean, I don't think those people should be condemned, and neither should ones that believe, I mean, that are into rocket science or astrophysics or whatever, and they like that more. And they're more knowledgeable about those subjects as opposed to astrology. So, But I mean, the astrology universe is very growing, and you have a lot of people out there that are very inspirational and that are willing to share their profuse knowledge. I mean, there is such a wide divergence of ways to learn. Of course, you could go to do YouTube astrology videos. I mean, you could even do something more nostalgic, so to speak. And of course, there's plenty of actual books that you could purchase that really give a lot of solid astrological information that are very informative and provocative and insightful. There was one book called The Secrets of a Stargazer's Notebook that I loved. It incorporated a very whimsical quality to it, and in the way they were describing a lot of these astrological placements, it was done almost like in conversation, like if somebody was actually talking to you, and it wasn't your typical textbook astrology book. So anyway, also the sad thing about, I mean, astrology, I mean, for the most part, it really is very positive, but you have some people that may use it for their own self-centered and nefarious purposes. You have some people that may try to vilify other astrologers on YouTube in order to make a name for themselves and gain notoriety. And the reality is that there's more people that need to be embracing others and not look at astrology as a competition. We could all learn something from each other. It's interesting because when you look at this, I mean, I understand you have YouTube astrologers that some are more knowledgeable than others, but even the ones that are less knowledgeable than others and that are on a more, let's say if they're on a novice or intermediate level as opposed to an expert level, some of those people may even be able to give insight to those more advanced astrologers. I mean, we could all learn something from each other. It was interesting. A while back when I actually enabled comments on my videos, somebody had put something that I could learn a lot from some YouTube astrologer. And it was a fairly, renowned, fairly prolific YouTube astrologer. And it was something about that I didn't elaborate on aspects as far as the applying and separating part of them. And I basically, stated that, hey, that person can still learn something from me because the person in question, a lot of times, I mean, as good as she is, I mean, she was describing things a lot of times just using the hands to convey or depict what she was trying to say, whereas me, I mean, where I can just articulate things very well. Of course, all modesty aside, but I mean, I gotta just be honest and fair about myself, right? I mean, those are some things to look at. The point is that there's some elements you can get that some YouTube astrologers will have that the other ones won't bring. So so even if one lacks something in something they're doing or something they're saying or not saying, that same YouTube astrologer might be doing something, they're bringing something to the table, so to speak, that other YouTube astrologer is not bringing. So anyway, another thing too is that sadly, you have also in the astrology community, you have some people that are just so obsessed and fixated with it that they take certain things and opinions about astrology to heart. And I mean, things astrologically related to heart. And one time I had done my strongest zodiac sign video, and somebody had said that we were a bunch of us that, I mean, I had chosen Scorpio as the sign, and what I thought was the strongest zodiac sign, and a number of people concurred and agreed with me on it. And what happened was somebody was taken aback by it. He was very exasperated and got irritated, and he said something like we were all a bunch of Scorpio butt kissers or something, and then presumably because we didn't chose his sign, which his sun sign was Taurus, and of course you got to look at the moon and ascendant anyway, and so. And the thing is, I mean, as I've stated in my videos, the stars may impel but do not compel, and there's still more to life than just astrology. And I think some people just take this so sometimes a little bit too much to heart. And I mean, it's kind of like, I mean, let's say if you did a video, I mean, sorry, if you calculated a chart, electional chart for a football game, for example, let's say that you did one and you were going to have the New England Patriots were going to, of course, their perennial Super Bowl contender. Let's say they were at home against the New York Jets. And the chart said that, based on the chart reading, it looked more auspicious for the New York Jets to win. Well, you know that would still be very improbable for the New York Jets to win. I'm a New York Jets fan, and I'm just being honest and objective about it. In a situation like that, you got to factor in common sense into the equation as well, and just remember that, I mean, that you have one team that's head and shoulders above the other planet. When you see a chart like that, it just basically may mean, like in that example, that the Jets may make the game a little more competitive than what was originally presumed. That's generally what happens. Many of you may remember when I did that, when I was giving my analysis of the Mayweather-Conor McGregor fight, that it actually looked more favorable for McGregor. But, I mean, most of us knew and concurred that Mayweather was going to win the fight, but what I figured was it was going to go a little bit longer than a lot of people anticipated. It was more competitive, and sure enough it was. So anyway, I'm going off on Gemini Moon tangent here, sorry. What I want to say, though, is that is really, as far as the astrological community, is that, okay, I want to get at the world population right now is about 7.4 billion people. That tells me I would be willing to say that at least close to 2 billion people may give some credence and credibility to the subject of astrology. Another thing about the community I find very interesting is that, okay, it seems like the perpetual battle and debate between what is more veracious, Vedic or Western astrology. And really, I mean, most of you know, I mean, the main difference is that Vedic uses, of course, the fixed zodiac signs and constellations, while the Western zodiac is more about, it's about the moving zodiac by precessions. So, and some people, what they do is they actually combine the two. You may see some people that do Western astrology calculations, but they'll incorporate some Vedic delineations into it. Or then in contrast, you might have some people that do Vedic calculations, but they'll incorporate some Western delineations and interpretations into their analysis. So, and what's interesting too is that you have so many people that will be so quick to dismiss, refute, or debunk the subject of astrology. And a lot of this, of course, is just based on superficial knowledge, which is, of course, really is just like knowing the daily horoscope and your sun sign. And many will say that it doesn't fit because either their sun sign description doesn't fit them, or the daily horoscope is not accurate. Well, the thing about it is that, I mean, you talk about the sun sign is only one proponent of many parts in the chart, that many of these people that will debunk astrology as hogwash or rubbish or whatever, they just haven't studied it deeply. They have to realize that there is something called an ascendant or rising sign, and also the moon sign. I mean, the three main proponents in a chart, I believe, are the ascendant, the moon, and the sun. And a lot of times people will not act like their sun, at least as far as their outer demeanor and outer characteristics, because the ascendant is dominating often what they're expressing outwardly, or the sun. And if the sun is in a cadent house, which I call like a mutable house, if the sun is in the 3rd, 6th, 9th, or 12th house, and I think especially the 12th, the energy of that planet is going to be diminished, I believe. So, and really, that is, I mean, those are, and really, I think what I would encourage the people that are so quick to debunk astrology, I mean, why don't they just take the time in studying it more extensively and more deeply? And if they come to the conclusion after studying it more deeply and more extensively, and they want to say, they want to refute it and say that it's rubbish or what have you, then by all means, and that's their option prerogative. But I think what it is that they're not even willing to look at the whole picture of it. And I think you can see that, I mean, you have astrology is not seen by many. I mean, I don't believe it's classified as a science. I think it's a pseudoscience. And I do understand why in a way, because you do have a lot of these people that are scientists or what have you that say that it shouldn't be. And there's other reasons too why I could understand why it wouldn't be, but the scientists, they don't necessarily, they either don't go into it that deeply, or some of them just don't explain or expound properly on certain reasons. Well, firstly, I don't see astrology as I mean, I see it as a science. I know it's not classified as one, but I mean, the reason why it may never be a science are certain things, like for example, I mean, sometimes it's hard to tell where the energy is coming from in a person's chart. Like, let's say in my case, right? In my chart, okay, I have a number of elements for being communicative and being talkative and loquacious. I have my moon in Gemini. I have Mars in the 3rd house. I have the ruler of the 3rd posited in my 1st house. I also have the Sun and Mercury. They're in the 2nd, but they're conjunct my 3rd house cusp. And I also have my moon in Gemini is in mutual reception with my Mercury in Cancer. So that makes the moon in Gemini even more pronounced, and you can make an argument that it's similar to having the Mercury in Gemini itself. But I also, like I stated before, I have Mercury conjunct my 3rd house cusp anyway, and right there that can give some Gemini-like undercurrents to my Mercury in Cancer. So, and those are, I think, we can all, I mean, I think the one thing that really bothers me about the astrological community is not just the people that want to say negative, derogatory things about others just to try to bring them down and eliminate them from the community and really do things to malign them and make their reputation go down. It's also people that are the trolls and the ones that you'll see people that will just they'll put they'll put negative, derisive comments on people's videos. And it's just like, and really, instead of just, I mean, if there's something you don't agree with, you could still put something constructively. I mean, there's ways of arguing a point or disputing a point without being disputatious. So, but that being said, anybody that, well, I guess I want to close with anybody that ever, that if you're thinking about studying astrology and you haven't done it yet, you want to learn more deeply, I encourage people to do so. I believe the astrological community is going to progressively get larger and larger as time progresses. This is something, I think, where you're getting more people, I think, too, that are studying it more deeply and less cynical and skeptical about it. And that is really the thing. And if you're somebody that doesn't believe in astrology and you haven't really delved deeply into it, all I would ask is that, why don't you just look a little further into it? And you might actually see that there is more validity and veracity to it than you might have initially noticed. So anyway, people, that'll conclude this YouTube astrological segment for my thoughts on the astrological community. Stay tuned next time, where I'm going to be giving you my take on the 2017-2018 Jupiter in Scorpio transit. 2 things I want to get with you on before I head out. Firstly, the stars may impel but do not compel. And secondly, never isolate any single astrological element, aspect, planetary placement, position, configuration, influence, or what have you, and make an analysis of a person, astrologically speaking, based on this alone, because astrologically speaking, the person is the sum of all their components in their natal chart and not just one. Until next time, people, stay well.